I was not a natural A streamer, so I wasn't good at everything. But I did have, a bit like you have, certain inspirational teachers. I had some really, really good teachers who believed in me. And by their words and deeds, they really filled me with confidence and made me feel very happy and good about what I wanted to do. And I always remember, I loved sport at school, and I always remember I had one particular sports teacher, and when she saw how quickly I could run, she said, Helen, we're going to buy a stopwatch and we are going to start training you for the Olympics. And I was only about 11 at the time. And she bought the watch, and I actually believed her. And although I didn't actually make the Olympics, sadly, sporting success for me at school and at county level was enough to make me feel so good about what I was doing that it helped me to achieve pretty good results in most of my subjects at school. And that allowed me to go on to university to study law, and from there I became a solicitor, and from there I became a partner in a London firm. So it was to do with my mum, and it was to do with my school, and it really, really made a big difference. And both the school and my mum used to say to me, Helen, you need to work really, really hard, and you need to aim really, really high. And those things are so important. And working my way through life, I've learned lots of different lessons, and I can't tell them all to you today because we'd be here all day. But there's 5 of them that I would just like to share with you. And I don't expect you to remember all of them, but you know, even if you just remember one of the lessons and it helps you at some point in your life, then it may well be worth it. The first one, and from what I've seen already, I think you have it, but it's you have to believe in yourself, and others will help you, like Jenny and all of you teachers, but you have to believe in yourself. It needs to come from here, and they will tell you you can do it, but you need to believe that you can do it. And being successful is not about where you live or what you look like. It's actually about what you want and what you aspire to, and it's about taking responsibility for yourself, but also being kind and decent to other people, whether it's other people at school or other people in your community. That's an important part of being successful. The second point, the second lesson I want to tell you, and this is really important, you mustn't listen to people that try to put you off. And there's nothing wrong, is there, Jenny, with building very lofty ladders and aiming for the stars. And I know we've got some chefs, we've got a pilot somewhere. Who's going to be a pilot? And we've got a doctor. I've heard all sorts of fantastic things that you're going to be, and you mustn't let anyone ever tell you that you can't do that. And I've never understood why people are negative, but sometimes in life they just are. So I would say, don't listen to them and rise above it. And I'll tell you a little story that happened to me when I was at school. I actually went to a lovely school, but one day, and this was a bad thing that happened, one day the teacher came into the lesson and asked us what we all wanted to be when we grew up. And I was really excited because I knew what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I just could hardly contain myself, and that hand kept going up. And it got to me right at the very end, and there was a class of about 30 children, and everybody said what they wanted to do. And then it came to my turn, and I proudly put my hand up and said, Sir, I want to be a lawyer. And you know, he turned round and he said, but you'll never do that, Sped. Sped was my nickname at the time. And you know, it was so embarrassing, and I felt awful. And I went home and I told my mum, and she said, ignore him, you'll do it. And you know, as I stand here today, I am the lawyer, and he was wrong. So you need to remember, don't listen to people There's another thing that I want to talk to you about too, which is very important, and that's the feeling in some young people that I meet that they're put off doing certain subjects because they think they just need to either jobs that men do or jobs that women do. And I'm sure your teachers will agree with me. Anyone can do any job. There is no job that is just for a man, and there is no job that is just for a woman. You can do anything that you choose to do. But you know, it is true, and I see a lot of girls in this room today, but it is true that a lot of our clever, brilliant girls are not taking on subjects like science, technology, engineering, and maths. And these are brilliant subjects, and you can do all sorts of exciting jobs with them. And so when you're deciding what you want to do when you're either at this school or your next school or when you go on to university, I want you to keep a very open mind and consider absolutely everything. The third lesson is that you mustn't take setbacks personally, and this is a hard one, and you know, I still struggle with it. But you've not got to think, well, it's my fault, I can't do it. Because, you know, when you fail something, it's part of success, and it's how you learn to succeed, and it's how you become even better the next time that you do it. And I have to be honest with you, children, that, you know, I've failed exams, I have messed up interviews, and things continue to go wrong. And I think if most people were honest, they would tell you the same. But as the song goes, you know, each time you have to literally pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and start again. And the interesting point is that when you start again, it's often from a much stronger, better position. Lesson number 4, I'm nearly there now. Except that Rome wasn't built in a day, and very few people achieve success overnight. And if they do, it's rarely lasting. And actually, to be successful, it requires blood and sweat and tears, and it often requires you to operate outside your own comfort zone. That means doing things in an area that you're maybe not that comfortable with. And again, an example of what happened in my life was in the early stages of my parliamentary career, when I was a new backbench MP. I remember going into a very rowdy House of Commons, and the world was on me in terms of the TV. And I had the opportunity to ask my first question to the Prime Minister at a session called Prime Minister's Questions. Has anybody heard of Prime Minister's Questions, PMQs? Yes. So for those that have seen it, there's about 650 rowdy, shouting, braying MPs, and all the cameras, all the news, all the journalists. And if you have a question, the speaker just looks at you, shouts your name, says Helen Grant, and everything goes quiet, and you've just got to stand up. And I can tell you, for a moment, my legs literally turned to jelly. I had complete brain freeze, and it was the most terrifying moment. But I managed to make my point, and I sat down, actually without anybody noticing. I felt the fear, but they didn't. But the next time, I had to go to Prime Minister's Questions, and I had a question. It was so much easier. And that's sometimes what you have to do. You have to do things like some of you have to do today, when you were asked by your teachers whether you wanted to speak in front of the whole school. It must have been quite frightening to begin with, but now you've done it, it will be so much easier the next time. And the final point I want to make to you, and again, this is a really important one. Once you're up there, because I know that many of you in this room are going to achieve your goals and go on to do very, very well, and you will be role models, and people will look up to you. And it's really, really important that once you get there, and you will get there, that you put that ladder that we were talking about back down so that you can help some others to come up. Final point, I also know that some of you in this room have already overcome many of the challenges and barriers and hurdles and difficulties that can often impede success. But you've already started to overcome many of them. And you have self-confidence, you have self-esteem, you have a great school, you have some fantastic teachers, and you have good parents with you who care about you and who love you. And you know, that's all you need to be able to let your aspirations flourish and get on. So my message to you, as we started from the very beginning, I want you to aim very, very high. I want you to work very, very hard. And I want you to believe that you can do absolutely anything that you choose to do. And I just want you to also try and remember the words of one famous golfer, who none of these little ones at the front will remember, but your teachers and parents may. And in the words of Gary Player, he said, "The more I practice, the harder I work, the luckier I become." So thank you very much indeed, St Mary's. Thank you for giving me such a welcome today. Indeed, to take some questions, either from teachers, from pupils. You can ask me anything you like. Hey, I see a lot
You
of
might get
hands
anything
here.
they like.
We've
had people ask who they like around sandwiches, so it may not be to do with aspiration.
Probably one about aliens.
Bilali, you look like you've been very, very inspired today. Can you get with a big voice, please?
What inspired me to become a lawyer? Do you know, I've never really hated that many things in life. I get on with my life, I do my best, and I don't usually have much of that emotion. But one thing I do hate, and that's injustice. It drives me potty. I don't like it, it bothers me, it upsets me. And when I was your age, it was just the same. And I felt, well, if I don't like injustice, maybe the law, which is about justice, is something that I should do.
Yeah, there must be a little pleasure.
So this is for her and
Yes, I